Assalamu alaikum and welcome, my Muslim friends. Within today's presentation, we want to share with you about the Ottoman Turks in Bible prophecy. Not many people realize it, but just as we discussed in Revelation chapter 9, the first half, which dealt with Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Arab Saracens, the second half of Revelation chapter 9 is describing the war between apostate Christianity and the Ottoman Empire, or the Muslims, the Ottoman Turks. We're going to be sharing from Revelation chapter 9. We're going to be looking at verses 11 onwards. And just to give you a quick rundown again here, in Revelation chapter 9, verse 20 and 21, it talks about these people which are worshiping devils and idols of gold and silver and wood and brass and stone that cannot see. Here we have a description of the apostate Roman Catholic Church of that time. The fifth trumpet, or the first woe, was the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims at that time. We're now going to be looking at the second great war, which is dealing with apostate Christianity and the Ottoman Turks. And we will deal in a future presentation about this last great war described in the book of Joel chapter 2, Revelation 13 and 14, the war between the West and the East again, which will bring into the great final countdown of the second coming of Isa and the end of this world and the judgment. But let's take a look here at Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. It says, "And they had a king over them," this is referring to the locusts, "which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." Here we're talking about this king here. This king is Othman, and Othman is the king over the Muslims, or the locusts of the Arabian desert at this time. It says in verse 12, "One woe is past," or the first war is past, "and behold, there come two more woes hereafter." So now there's going to be two more great wars described in here. "And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God." So this voice and command is coming from God Himself. God is commanding these next four messengers in Revelation chapter 9, verse 14. It says, "Saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels, and which are bound in the great river Euphrates." You see, my friends, the Euphrates River area, there was four caliphs, four messengers, four sultans, four great angels or messengers that were being commanded to go to war. Verse 15, "And the four angels, the four caliphs, the four sultans were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year. And they were let loose to what? To slay a third part of the men." Here the Ottoman Turks were commanded by God to slay 1/3 of the Roman Empire. "And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire, of jacinth and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone." Here we've got a description, my friends, in Revelation 9:17, that the Muslims were on horses. And it says here that they had fire coming out of their mouths, of the horses' mouths. We're going to share some things here that show the armory that the Ottoman Turks use. This armory can be found in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, Turkey here. I've got a good friend that's been there with another friend of mine there. And they've done a short little video that we'd like to show you here too. You could find that on our website. But they give the evidence from the Topkapi Palace of what the armory was. The very things described in Revelation chapter 9 is hanging in the walls of the museum of Topkapi. But it says here that they had fire coming out of the horse's mouths. When we take a look here at the Ottoman Turks, God had favored the Ottomans. He had favored them with muskets and the cannon. When we look at the Roman Empire back then, they had the first opportunity to receive this cannon, and they rejected it. When we look at Islam was favored by God for this war because He wanted them to help bring back Christianity to the one true worship, to the worship of the one true God. So here in Revelation chapter 9, verse 17, it talks about these muskets. John had seen in vision when he had seen the Ottomans on the horses. He had seen the Ottomans hunched over with their guns. As their guns were raised to about the height of the horse's head, just beneath it, because as you ride a horse, you need to hunch over or they'd fall off. So as they shot their muskets, as the igniting flame came forth from the musket, it looked to John, who was given vision of this, that the fire was coming out of the horse's mouth, when in reality it was coming out of the muskets. Remember, this vision here was prophesied a little over 500 years before happening. God was telling that He would use the Ottoman Turks as His mighty army. Not only were they given muskets, but the Ottoman Turks had the largest cannons within the world. We'll share a few pictures of that for you to take a look at. But when I read on these things, there was a forefather of our faith within the Seventh-day Adventists. His name is James White. And he wrote extensively on this chapter, Revelation chapter 9, about the Ottoman Turks. He said within his book that when the Ottomans were coming to war, when they were moving from the east to the west, when they were moving towards Constantinople, that as they traveled with these heavy wagons on top of them with the cannons, that they had to make a runway for all of this equipment to come through. There was men that would had shovels, saws, and all different sorts to make a path and to smooth it to bring this weaponry through. But as we look at these cannons, the weight of them was innumerable. But the cannonballs themselves, the ball that they would shoot from these cannons weighed anywhere from 600 to 1,200 pounds. And when they started to encircle and encamp around the walls of Constantinople, they would line these cannons up 1 mile's distance. So they shot the cannonballs from 1 mile's distance away, and that would come and break down the walls of Constantinople. You see, Allah had wanted to break this system, this apostate Christianity that was ruling the world, that was causing confusion. Not only causing confusion, but it was killing people that were worshiping the one true God. So here we've got the Ottoman Turks in Bible prophecy, and we like to share in future presentations here too, that not only did Revelation 9 predict the rise of the Ottoman Empire, but it also talked about to the very year and day that the Ottoman Empire would fall. But before we leave, we'd like to share a few comments with you here. This comes from Abu Becker, and this is in reference to with Islam and Bible prophecy and the command for it to war, in which the command actually came from God Himself. It says, "When you fight the battles of the Lord, acquit yourselves like men, without turning your backs, but let not your victory be stained with the blood of women and children. Destroy no palm trees, nor burn any fields of corn. Cut down no fruit trees, nor do any mischief to cattle, only such as you kill to eat. When you make any covenant or article, stand to it, and be as good as your word. And as you go, you will find some religious persons who live in retired in monasteries and propose themselves to serve God that way. Let them alone, and neither kill them nor destroy their monasteries. And you will find another sort of people that belong to the synagogue of Satan, who have shaven crowns. Be sure to cleave their skulls and give no quarter till they either turn Mohammedans or pay tribute. So here God had commanded, not only during the time of Abu Bakr, but this was to follow through all the way to the end of time, that there was a certain class of Christians that worshiped the one true God, that did not believe in the Trinity, that followed the truths of the Torah and the Injil, the Christians that did not eat pork, the Christians that did not worship idols, they were to leave alone. But here it says that they were to cleave the skulls of those of the Roman Catholic persuasion, those that hold to the doctrines of the Roman Church, such as the Trinity, the worship of Mary, the belief that you could drink alcohol and eat pork and still go to paradise. They were to kill those sorts of Christians. Abu Bakr was given this by God, but it's also found in the honored Quran. In ayat 929 of the Yusuf Ali translation, it says this: "Fight those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are the people of the book, until they pay jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued." So here the command was to fight those that were not submitted to Allah. Ayat 3, 113 and 14 says this: "Not all of them are alike. Of the people of the book there are a portion that stand for the right. They rehearse the signs of Allah all night long and then prostrate themselves in adoration." 114 says, "They believe in Allah, the last day. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and they hasten in emulation. In all good works, they are in the ranks of the righteous." Here it says in Surah 113 and 114 that they're not all alike, that there's differences amongst the Christians, that there's some Christians that don't worship the Trinity, there's some Christians that don't eat pork, there's some Christians that don't drink. And it says here that they are even in the ranks of the righteous. It is only as we partake of Allah's righteousness that we can be called righteous. Another quote I'd like to share with you concerning the time of the Ottoman Turks is this. Martin Luther was a man of God. At the time of the Reformation, when he was starting to read, he started reading the Scriptures for the first time. He had seen within that we were not to worship saints. He had nailed his 95 Theses to the wall, commanding that the church of the day was in wrong in what the Pope was teaching. And here is what he says here in a few quotes. This comes from J.A. Wiley, Volume 1, Book 9. It says, "It is you," said the adherents of the old creed addressing the Lutherans, this is the papacy talking to the Lutherans, "who have brought this scourge upon us. It is you who have unloosed these angels of evil. They have come to chastise you for your heresy. You have cast off the yoke of the Pope, and now you must bear the yoke of the Turk." "Not so," said Luther. "It is God who has unloosed this army, whose king is Abaddon the Destroyer." Remember, we read in Revelation chapter 9, Abaddon the Destroyer referring to the Ottoman Turks. "They have been sent to punish us for our sins, our ingratitude for the gospel, our blasphemies, and above all, our shedding of the blood of the righteous." So we'll stop with the quote there. But it says blasphemies. The Trinity doctrine is a blasphemy to God. Also, it says the shedding of the blood of the righteous. The Roman Catholics at that time were killing the true Christians, the Waldenses, and all of the other people of the Eastern land, the Muslims. So here God commanded the Turks to go and kill, and Martin Luther himself understood Revelation 9 and said that God had sent the Ottoman Turks to punish the Roman Catholics because of their apostasy. I want to read one more quote here before we close. It says, and this comes from the same book, J.A. Wiley, History of Protestantism, Volume 1, Book 9, Chapter 1, page 473. It states, when a crisis arose in the affairs of the Reformation, the kings, obedient to the Roman see, had united their swords to strike, and with blows so decisive they should not need to strike a second time. The Turk, obeying one whom he knew not, would straightway present himself on the eastern limits of Europe, and in so menacing attitude that the swords unsheathed against the poor Protestants had to be turned in another quarter. The Turk was the lightning rod that drew off the tempest. And listen to this, my friends. Thus did Christ cover the little flock with the shield of the Moslem. You see, my friends, God used the Muslims of the day to come help protect the true Christians. While they were used as a protection to the true Christians, they were death and a plague to apostate Christians. God had used the Ottoman Turks at such a decisive hour to keep the influence of the truth to continue. We hope this has been helpful to you, our friends, and we hope to see you again, inshallah.